Pellegrino. So
Well, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, my friends. I am happy to have you here, and I'm really excited for tonight's show. I'm going to have a ton of fun, which I deserve and I need, and we all do. So I cannot wait to talk to Greg Bishop, who's been on my show multiple times, and he has been a very dear friend to me over the years, and I am very supportive of his work. But first, I want to thank all of you for listening to the show, from tuning in from all over the world. It's really cool to know that you're staying up late or getting up super early to watch UFO Classified. And I also want to give a shout out to Expanding Frontiers Research Organization.org, which is my new project with Jack Brewer and Barry Greenwood. We are a nonprofit and have a website that you can check out. Over the past few weeks, we've been writing some great, well, Jack specifically has been writing some incredible articles about NICAP, about certain things that are taking place in Utah. And specifically, 3 days ago, we dropped a story called Skinwalker cast members received $175K in county economic development funds. And so it's getting a lot of hits, a lot of traction, people looking at that story, again, from all over the world, and people in mainstream media looking at that because there's some strange things afoot. And if any of you know me, you'll understand that I will keep looking into them and get to the bottom of them eventually, because I fully believe that all of us in the UFO world, we deserve the truth. We don't deserve to be jerked around. We deserve to explore this and to be empowered and to feel happy. And when there are people that are doing things that aren't above board, then I'm the woman that will probably find that out and expose you. I hate to say it, Greg. You're like, oh my God. But let's talk about Hervé Villachez, because so I've got to just say for 1 second, Greg, identify the shoe.
that was the one in front of it was in the middle of the street when it was raining, in front of the Mormon Tabernacle when we visited.
Okay, thank you. This is really good. So Greg has been out to Salt Lake and a couple times, and I've been out to see him. And I want to just show, where's this picture of him? Okay, this.
Oh, that's me taking a picture of the shoe. Okay, it's like I passed the test.
I saw the shoe, and then I asked you if you, for some unknown reason, would go back and get the shoe. And the shoe is in the archive now. This has it's very significant to me. To nobody else. And I mean, I'm sure there's probably some 12-year-old girl that was traumatized for the rest of her life because she lost her shoe. But hey, we found it.
It's a creepy shoe. I like it.
It is a creepy shoe. And speaking of creepy things that we did while you were in Utah.
That thing was amazing. Erica took me to the sculpture garden. She'll describe it, but it's like crazy Mormon sculpture. That's supposed to be Joseph Smith as the Sphinx. The funny thing is he looks like Mr. Bean or something. No, who did he look like that we said he looked like? I can't remember.
Yeah, Isaac Coy.
I have no idea who he looks like, but he might as well be that. Maybe that's who it is, actually.
And it's so funny because this place, you guys, if you don't, probably nobody understands how cool Gilgood Gardens is. And it's like a hidden gem. I used to go there when I was in high school. You couldn't get in. You'd have to sneak over the fence. And it was behind the Seventh-day Adventist church. And it was actually this wonderful, it's a beautiful place that is kept up now by Preservation Society. But it is, my grandma's old bishop is the person who actually built all of these crazy sculptures. And you go in there and they're body parts, like the stone body parts and different scriptures that you can see all over. It's truly a phenomenal hidden gem in Utah. And I'm really happy that I got to take you there when you came.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about it. And then I looked it up later, and it's like it's a weird road stop on all kinds of different maps.
I know, it's
I
so
guess
cool.
people have found out about it.
Yeah, they have. I mean, and they like really like the gardens are so beautiful, and it's one of my favorite places. I love it. So, and then we also took a trip to the
Yeah,
Salt Lake Cemetery.
yeah, that's my friend Robert Larson, who was one of the co-founders of the Excluded Middle magazine, and we went to the what was her name?
Gray.
Lily F. Gray, victim of the Beast 666. One of the coolest gravestones I've ever seen. And it was, I think her husband put that on there because he said he was pissed off with the health system in Utah and the government. So he said it was run by the B666, which is why he put that there. Because Regan Lee, I think, tried to find out if Aleister Crowley came through Salt Lake City, and that didn't pan out. But then it turned out the guy was just pissed off and nuts because he thought his wife was screwed over by the system.
And that's such a fascinating story, and it's like one of those places again, there's another place, and I don't think we found that when you were up there, it's called Emo's Grave, and it's a, mausoleum, and when you go we didn't find that, did we?
No, I didn't think we found that one. No.
But it was like a, place like it's I mean, I heard about it in high school and grade school, and it's like if you go by there and you go around it 3 times and say his name, then you can look in the mausoleum door and you can see his face. And so that was
Ah,
always like one of the big, like every cemetery has those um little tales and things, but it was just really it was fascinating. And Salt Lake Cemetery is one of the oldest and largest cemeteries in the country, which is quite amazing. And my great grandparents are buried there, I will say, which I didn't take you to see their grave, but next time you're in town, we'll go and hang
okay.
out. But
No,
and then
cemeteries are cool.
cemeteries are super cool. And so there's a picture of us up there. Isn't that cute?
It is.
That is
Yeah.
very cute.
Where's the
And
picture of us at the Sphinx?
I don't think I've got that. You might have that.
Okay. I've got it somewhere. I know I do.
Yeah, that was fun. And then we also went out because we went to the Mormon temple, which was really super cool. And we had a nice conversation with people there, and you got to see everything. And if you've not been to Utah, like the Mormon temple is the LDS temple. I don't want to get in trouble. It is really absolutely the grounds, the architecture, everything is truly stunning. And so it was cool to take you there and show you that. And then we traveled off to dun, 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 the Great Salt Lake.
Yeah, which was still there. I guess it's disappeared now, or mostly disappeared.
Yeah, and I love this picture of you guys. I think this is just sums it up. And in the background, there's an island called Antelope Island, which is really, really cool. If you come to Utah, you can travel out there and see some of the old farmhouses there. But if some of
Probably
you don't
walk out there
know,
now.
I know you can. Have you heard the news about what's happening with the Great Salt Lake?
I heard that it's drying up or has dried up, which is kind of insane.
Yeah, it's really, really sad. I have a client of mine who is a professor at Westminster, and that's her area of study is Great Salt Lake, and she's been raising alarm bells for many, many years about the fact that this really fragile ecosystem is going to dry up, and then we are going to potentially we will be exposed to hazardous debris because of Kennecott Copper pumping and dumping things into the Great Salt Lake, and a lot of arsenic. And so it'll be interesting. And then we have a lot of birds that come through here and migrate. So this is it'll be a very sad point in time when this dries up. And I just have to say that there are not a lot of political leaders who are taking charge to make sure things are done. I just needed to say that because it's like, honestly, the Great Salt Lake is so cool, and it's such a fragile and special place. So
Yeah,
I'm glad you
well,
got to see it.
drought has probably dried it up. The Salton Sea is drying up down here in Southern California, and if that dries up, that has a whole bunch of toxic stuff at the bottom that'll blow and harm people that especially live in where the Coachella Festival is. It'll blow through there, Palm Springs. It might even get to LA. So they're kind of figuring out how to keep it from completely draining out, even though it's an artificial body of water. I mean,
Wow.
it was created in like 1907 or something.
So what are they trying to do? What steps have they implemented?
The latest one is they're going to try and build a canal from the Gulf of Mexico and get the water in that way because it's lower. It's like The bottom of it is lower than the lowest point in Death Valley, actually. So the lowest
Wow.
point in the continental US is actually at the bottom of the Salton Sea, not in Death Valley. I think Death Valley is like 232 feet below sea level at Badwater, which is a salt flat. Yeah, the Salton Sea is lower than that even. So they're trying to keep it from drying up. They think of it like putting a dam halfway through it so that it only has to fill up part of it. And there's all kinds of different plans, but of course nobody's doing anything because it always gets held up.
Wow, I know that's the way it is here. It's just like, oh, let's sit around and talk about it, and then all the politicians will go on, boat tours and things, and oh, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna, and it's just like this is what you should have done 10 years ago.
Yeah,
It's really
everything's
sad.
done. Yeah, too little and too late.
So, but I'm really happy that you got to see it because it's super cool. Beautiful, beautiful place. And then I want to also just say that probably the most important stop on your trip here.
Oh, yeah, your business.
Well, shameless self-promotion.
You have to.
Well,
How is it doing? How's Total Body doing?
you know what? It's actually really it's picking up. I'm super stoked. It was very difficult to have, with COVID and we had to shut down and we couldn't get funding and things. And so it was kind of fly by the seat of your pants. And now we've got, more COVID burning through and things. So I've been very lucky to have other outlets, to, art and different things, the show specific things like that. But I'm
Mhm.
picking up. I mean, I've been doing it for 22 years, so I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's an established business. I hope it sounds like it's better because you were kinda hanging by a thread for a while, and that sounds like you came back, so that's good.
Yeah, I'm really stoked. I've got some cool clients who are very influential people and kind and wonderful, and so it's really fun. We have a good vibe here, and I want to just thank Helga for joining us from Norway on an ice cold, wonderful night, and thank you for all of your photos that you send me. I love looking at Heshdalen; it's amazing. And Jim, thanks for hanging out with us, and Sean Drew. Good morning, you guys. UFO John Doe. I mean, it's so much fun to get in here. Michael Reynolds. What the UFO, Justin
Hmm.
S. Sorry, I've just got to go through and thank everybody. And I want to thank
Yeah.
Shadowy Spectrums for always helping me promote the show. And I also want to thank Mario, who does so much behind the scenes for UFO Classified. I couldn't be here if it was not for him. So thank you, Mario. Got to give a shout out to everybody. And then I want to just 2 more seconds because I'm geeking out. Okay, so I've been to LA a couple times and you took me to this very special place.
Yeah, the Aetherius Society. Yeah. I notice it just from like because the building's pink, so it's really easy to recognize the buildings.
And I wish I had a better picture of the door because the gate is just phenomenal. But tell us a little bit for people that don't know about that, what that is.
Yes, the Aetherius Society is the contactee religion that was founded in the mid 1950s in London by George King, who said that he was channeling aliens. And as he got more popular, he did what many people in Britain do: is move somewhere warm. So he moved to Southern California, which was ground zero for contactees in the 1950s. Got some property, got some followers, and started this UFO religion, which is still in existence, still going strong. They still every Wednesday, I think they charge the spiritual battery, which is this box that looks like something out of a science fiction movie that they put on a tripod, and then people go up and put their hands up to it and pray to it really loud, and that's what they call charging the spiritual battery. And then they take it away somewhere and it sends energy, like healing and peace energy, up to some satellite. I think he's called satellite number 7 or something. There's a model of it. If you go into their like gift shop, if you look up, it's in the ceiling. It's a hole in the ceiling with a model of the satellite in it. It's beautiful.
Wow, and that place was actually really stunning, and we sat by the fire pit and talked with a really wonderful and very nice, fellow for gosh, we were there for over an hour, and it was
Yeah.
really that was so fascinating that this little place is just tucked away in
Yeah,
LA,
and it's still going. It's like right off of Sunset Boulevard.
and like the crazy thing too is like they were mentioning that they take one of these machines to Lake Powell because apparently Lake Powell, according to them, is a site of
Yeah,
some, it's like some sort of portal
yeah,
where they can
yeah.
take
They
this
have, yeah,
influence.
yeah. They have power sites where they take them and either charge them and or discharge them. I think one of the other places, Mount Baldy, conveniently enough, which is about, I don't know, an hour east of Los Angeles. There's a few others. They're all over the world, and they've got centers in, Britain, still Australia. I think they had one in Japan for a while, but Britain, Australia, U.S., and the UK is where they're located now. um, and the main reason that I keep going back there is they could not give less of a flying whatever whether you want to join their religion or not. They don't proselytize. Even if you go and visit, they don't try and get you to join. They just talk to you for a while, and if you're not interested or whatever, they don't say, "Can you join?" They just talk to you about philosophy or for a while and UFOs if you're into it, and then they say bye and you go away. They're wonderful.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I will say that I noticed. I mean, it was very, here we are, we're going to sit and talk to you. It was not like other religions that we know about. It was just, here you are, and you can take what we say and or leave it. And I thought that was very fascinating. And I know that George King was very into yoga and different types of breathing techniques and things
Yeah,
to connect with a higher self and a higher power. And so very fascinating stuff. But that was a real treat to spend the afternoon there.
yeah. He syncretized a lot of religion, mainly a lot of Hindu stuff, I believe. I can see the influence in their, like you just said, in their breathing and yoga and all that. I actually saw him twice. I went there to do a story, the first story I ever had published in a magazine. I went there and George King came out in like his Pope robe with his big hat and everything, and talked about how the space people had just given him another award, and everybody clapped, and he held up like a medal or something that he probably had made, down the street somewhere.
Wow.
And then the other time I was there at a spiritual battery charging, and people were praying to the battery. And George King walked out from the back somewhere in his pajamas and yelled at everybody. It was great. I remember the one thing I remember he said was, "Don't yell at it like a lot of friggin' idiots." He was so wonderful. I think he just wanted to get some sleep, and they were praying too loud.
And so, I mean, like, how would you compare him to some of the people that have been in the community for a long time that maybe have more nefarious goals in mind? And people that are specifically cult leaders that have an agenda, like how would you compare him to other people you've seen in the subject?
Completely harmless, and yeah, he never. They had enough to have this center. They had enough to get this property, but nothing was ostentatious. He didn't drive around in a big fancy car or anything. And like I said, I mean, I think he infused his followers with this idea that if people are going to come here, then they're going to come, and if not, we don't have to bother them about it. But and that's kind of what I respect about them, and that's kind of more of a, I don't know, kind of an older. It seems like something nostalgic where people would mind their own business a little bit more. Um, I don't know if that's, there's also a very great American tradition of selling things to people very heavily, but for George King, I don't think that was really part of the equation. And the Unarius people too, they don't seem to go out and proselytize either, and they still exist in San Diego. Another holdout UFO contact religion. They're still there. They still have meetings. They still have property. They still have buildings, and they still have gatherings. And I don't know if they produce videos anymore, but they did that for a while. But
Interesting.
yeah, I just think these, they're, for the most part, the American contactees of the 50s, 60s were, they had their own business. They had their own thing they wanted to talk about, and they really didn't care about spreading that word. I mean, I guess they go to the giant rock conventions and there'd be like 5, 6, 8,000 people there, which was quite enough. But it wasn't as big of a movement as, as I guess the FBI thought it was, because they were worried about it, because they were saying dangerously communistic and socialistic things about the space people and how their government didn't have money or that everybody was equal or whatever. That bothered them. But, they were never politically active or anything like that. So all they wanted was to study spirituality, and this was a modern way to do it because space people were bringing it instead of dusty old people from the Bible. And that was what was attractive to some of those people. I mean, it's attractive to me. If I was around then, I don't know if I would have joined, but I sure would have been at all the conventions.
Well, I can see that. And I mean, I just want to bring up or just talk about, this wonderful, it's not that you can see that.
I can see it.
Such a wonderful book. It's, I love this. A is for Adamski, The Golden Age of UFO Contactees, that you wrote with Adam Gorightly and things. And this really is a beautiful book. And so you go through all of these people in this golden age of the contactee movement. And let's talk, if you don't mind, about a few of these people, because so
okay, I'll try and remember.
On the spot.
The book came out like 7 years ago or something, I think.
Well, let's talk about Truman Bethram.
What I remember, Gorightly wrote the first up A through L, A through M, and I wrote L through Z.
Okay.
Or whatever, A through K, and then I wrote L through Z. Or A through L, and I wrote M through Z. But anyway, Bethram was I think he was worked for aerospace, like or an aircraft. I'm probably wrong. A lot of these people worked in the aircraft and the aerospace industry. A lot of them. It's for some reason it seems to be a kind of a theme with them. But Bethram says he was out camping at White Sands, and a ship landed and somebody came out and talked to him. And I think eventually he ended up meeting with people over and over again, just like all the contactees said they did, people from outer space. And the commander of the ship, which was kind of interesting because most commanders of ships from contactee people were men. This is a woman. He said the woman's name was Aura Raines. So yeah, I like the pictures of her. She looks like a beatnik girl with like a beret on.
Oh man, I mean, it's fascinating to look at some of these things.
And he wrote a book, I think, called Aboard a Flying Saucer. I think that's the only book he wrote.
Oh my Lord! Well, you probably don't know about Erica.
Erica who?
Bertschinger.
Nope, not at all. I did not write that one.
Okay, well, I'm sorry.
We discovered so many people looking for more of them. My favorite was Paulina Peavy, who was an artist, actually.
Yes. Okay. Paulina Peavy, 1901 to 1999.
Yeah.
Let's talk about her. Let's show this little photo here.
Yeah, that's her on the Long John Nebel show, channeling her space friend Lakaimo or Lakamo. I think she pronounced it Lakaimo, but she said this guy was her contact that would channel paintings through her. And every painting she did, she had to create a different mask to channel through. That's just one mask there of like probably hundreds or thousands.
Wow.
And she would make these masks, and each time she would go into a trance and start doing her painting with these masks on. She grew up, I found out some biographical details. She grew up she was born in 1900. So she grew up, and she said her father said that he didn't want to send her to school because school was wasted on girls. So she had that against her. She eventually, when she left home, she finished her schooling. She became an artist. She moved to Los Angeles. I can't remember where she was born, but she moved to Los Angeles in the 1930s, I believe. And she met a woman at a church that was channeling a person from Venus, she said. I think her name was Bertie Lily Candler was the name of the woman. I
Wow.
found the church where they used to do the channeling at too. It's near downtown LA. It's still there. It's like a Filipino, like, evangelistic church now, but it's the same building.
Wow.
So she met that woman. She got interested in the channeling aspect, and she would channel this being. She said that would help her paint. And she also wrote basic like feminist tracts about how eventually men would disappear and there wouldn't be any men left, and women would survive on their own. Yeah. She had an abusive husband. The husband, finally they divorced, and then they took the kids away from her and put them in an orphanage, two sons, because they said she was an unfit mother because she didn't have a husband and she didn't have a proper job.
Oh,
So she
wow.
she went out and got a job with the LA City School District teaching art classes, and built herself back up, and finally got her kids back out of the orphanage and back with her.
Wow.
Yeah, she was a tough cookie.
What a fascinating story.
I
And
actually found ads in the LA area in old newspapers for her art exhibits.
so where are her masks today? Do you
There's not too
know?
many left, but there was an exhibit of her work and a retrospective last year at the Beyond Baroque Gallery here in LA, and I heard about it through Go Rightly, actually. And I went down there and banged on the door like the day before they opened, and they're like, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm Greg Bishop. I wrote about Paulina Peavy," and it was the woman that I can't remember her name. I think it was Heather something. It was the woman, the art historian, that was putting together the exhibit. She said, "Oh my God, I know who you are," and she let me in, and she gave me a private tour of all the paintings, and they're really amazing paintings. I mean, they're like, even if she wasn't a contactee, the paintings would have been totally stunning.
God, how fascinating. I mean, isn't that like amazing? Like when I look at this book, it's like you've got, this isn't a long section about her, but what you've told us is, there's so much more to her life, and what a fascinating person to look into. And that's, I think, one of the things that I love about this subject. It's like you can always learn so much about people, about, all of this. And let's talk about, let me just go through here really quickly because this is just really fascinating to me. So,
Yeah, we
um,
found so many people I'd never heard of, and then of course we went over the older people. Billy Meyer I wrote on, and Frank Strange's. These are all people that I'd heard about, but I didn't really do a deep dive on them. And I found out so many. Frank Strange's got arrested for smuggling marijuana once.
wasn't Frank Strange's it kind of he had some other issues with young boys.
No, not Frank Strange's. I
Okay.
think that was
Oh, it was Gray Barker. Excuse me.
wasn't even, well, Gray Barker. I have no idea, because I don't know I don't know, besides him being gay, if he had anything with young boys. The only one I know about is George Hunt Williamson, and that's only through Ray Stanford telling me about it.
Okay, and excuse me for misstating that fact. But okay,
It's
so
okay.
John Reeves.
Wow, I don't think I wrote that one. Was he the Florida Scoutmaster guy?
Let's see. He was an old retired longshoreman, snake hunting out in Scrub Flats near his home in Florida.
Oh, that's right. He not the Florida Scoutmaster, but I think he had like a close encounter, and then afterwards he thought he had messages coming through him. Yeah,
Okay, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but this is kind of fun.
that's okay.
So, the Venus Starchild.
Oh God, I don't know anything about her. Yeah, I don't remember writing that, Erica. I really don't. It's
Okay,
so
maybe you
funny.
didn't. So she's a young woman calling herself the Venus Starchild, came to the attention of saucer enthusiasts in June after appearing on Long John Nebel's party line. Miss Starchild informed Long John that people of the Earth have an exact double on Venus. And so, I mean,
Yeah, maybe Go Rightly wrote that. We occasionally wrote on the other side of the alphabet for each other.
wow, this is like so. Yeah, sorry to go off here, but okay, this is like the best drawing that I've ever would hope to recreate.
Oh yeah, that John Stewart thing. I don't know anything about Stewart, but that's a really great encounter drawing.
I think I dated him. Really loathsome, hideous, evil, disgusting, and horrifying. Yep. Okay. Amazing. This is like so cool. I mean, if anybody
I
wants to
didn't.
just,
I wrote a lot of the book, but I didn't read all of it.
I mean, there's so much here, and I just think it's like it's a wonderful history. And George Van
Yeah,
Tassel and
yeah. Van Tassel, I wrote that one obviously because he's near and dear to my heart. He's the Integratron is still out there. I was supposed to go out there and play UFO music and play a theremin there like last week, but I couldn't go because I had the COVID.
well, but it sounds like you had fun getting COVID, so that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I got it at Disney World, which is apparently a petri dish for COVID.
Sounds like you guys had fun though. That's awesome, and I want to just like show that. Look at you, Mr. Bishop.
With God, I look like a bum. But anyway,
No, you don't.
it was a bad hair day. Yeah, with John Keel in New York City. I met with him 2 times, I think. Maybe no, 2 times definitely. And I used to talk with him on the phone every couple of months. And to my delight, he because he would either really like you or he didn't like you. So apparently I got on his good side. And I went there the first time, and we went to the Natural History Museum and hung out. And then, oh no, 3 times, because then the second time I went to lunch with him, and the third time we went to lunch again. And every time I went, I got him to sign a book. But when I was working on the first book on Wake Up Down There for the collection of the magazine, I wanted quotes for the back cover. And I said, "Hey, John, can you give me a quote?" And he said, "Oh, no, I don't do anything like that." And then I asked him again a few months later. He said, "I'd really rather not." And then around Christmas, he called me up, or I called him, and I said, "John, I'm sick right now. I have the flu. I feel horrible. You know what would make me feel better? Could you please give me a quote for the book?" And he said, "Oh, all right." And his quote was, what was it? The truth is out there, but it's nowhere in this book. Buy mine instead. So I put it on there, and I listed a couple of his books so people knew which ones to buy.
Oh my God. Wow. And you've also got, let's talk about Dr. Demento.
Okay.
Just for a minute, because and I think people in the chat room are like actually maybe old enough to understand, maybe not like who Dr. Demento was, but he was like the craziest. I remember listening to him every Saturday. And
yeah,
so
me too.
you because you have such a big love of music and you like really strange music, and Dr. Demento was like a person that was it kind of you grew up with, like you reached out to him and paid $50 so he could do like little intros for your show.
He did one intro. I have a show called Stop Hitting Yourself. It's on WFMU on their streaming service on Mondays live at 1 p.m. Pacific. And when I found, this is to indulge my weird music fetish or fandom or whatever you want to call it, which was kindled by Dr. Demento when I was a kid. Because you'd listen to that and you go, people make dumb music? I can't believe they make this dumb music. It's great. It's so honest. I mean, some of these people, they don't even care that they're no good. They just do it, which is more than most people do, even though they suck. Yeah, there's Dr. Demento, I guess, as he looks now. But I used to listen to him when I was a kid. And then when I was doing this show, let me see if I can find it. When I was doing this show, I found out by going to his website, I don't know if he still does this, but if you paid him $50, I think it was $50, he would record anything you wanted as long as it wasn't obscene or anything. So I knew immediately what I wanted him to do. And let me see if this will play properly without,
So cool.
Without a,
sorry to like put you on the spot, but
that's okay. It's only 10 seconds.
This is Dr. Demento, and you're listening to Stop Hitting Yourself with DJ Space Brother on Sheena's Jungle Room at old WFM.
Oh, it faded into the next song, but Yeah, old WFMU. I wrote that out, and then he read it, and he did like 5 different takes of it for me, and then his assistant sent it to me, and I was over the moon. I thought it was amazing
That is so cool.
because I could, now I play that every show I do now. I play that, and every time I play it, people go, "Wow, what's that? That's really Dr. Demento." I say, "Yes, it is."
And it's like, I mean, it's so crazy because I remember, not to date myself at all. Nobody knows how old I am because I'm actually 20 years younger than I am. But I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, I just remember like Dr. Demento, and then who were we talking about last night? Oh my gosh, Casey Kasem.
Yeah.
I mean, even though Casey Kasem was kind of like, oh, Casey Kasem, and whatever. But it was just like those things when you were in your youth and you were growing up and watching American Bandstand and oh my gosh, Soul Train.
Yeah.
Even though I've only watched reruns, I wasn't watching them live. But
Yeah, I think I was watching. I'm not sure if I was watching reruns or not. It was on like on the weekends. What was it on, like on Saturdays or Sundays or something like that?
Yep. I think wasn't Casey Kasem on Sunday, I think, from my recollection. But
Dr. Demento for me was only, I think he's either Saturday nights or Sunday nights.
It was so funny.
For a while, I worked at this place and I was a manager, and everybody wanted to hear Dr. Demento, so I would pipe the Dr. Demento show through the voice system at the place, like the what are those called, where you can talk between rooms and all that, intercom system. So yeah, everybody would listen to Doctor. I would just leave the microphone on for like an hour with Dr. Demento on, and everybody be in their rooms working, and I'd be in the office listening to it, and we'd all be cracking up and making comments, and it was a fun job.
How fun! I love that. And I'm hey Ken, thanks for getting into chat, and Dave and everybody. But yeah, did Casey Kasem do Shaggy's voice?
Yes, he did.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. I was trying to find something. I've got basically something like 5 or 6 hours of UFO songs.
Lord.
At this point. Yeah.
And so, okay, I've just got to ask you, did you watch Land of the Lost?
Yes.
Okay. That was.
There's a woman, her name was, oh God, now I can't remember her name. But she did a couple of novelty records in the 1950s. And she wrote the theme for the Land of the Lost. Her name was Linda Laurie.
Wow.
Yeah. And she was on What's My Line once too, actually.
Stacks.
Yeah.
That was my impression. And like Will and Chaka, Holly. Oh my Lord, Mama Mary. And so like, okay, so did you, because I'm sorry, I'm like, it's not UFOs, you guys, but this is what shaped us as youth. So
for once, we're probably not going to talk about UFOs that much.
I know it's great. Like, I'm having fun not talking about UFOs, but do you remember like Charles Nelson Riley?
Yep. He was on Lidsville.
Yes. Like, who in the frick out there in chat who was listening remembers Lidsville?
Oh, probably quite a few people. Also, if people want to, there are some questions. You can ask some of those if you want.
All right, you guys, we get back to the UFO thing. We're talking about Lidsville. It's okay. So, have you spoken to Bill Maher lately?
I speak to him about once a year.
And how is he doing?
He's doing fine. He doesn't talk about UFOs anymore. He doesn't want to, which I don't blame him.
When did you become friends with him?
2 years before his Vegas speech.
Were you at Vegas when that happened?
Yep. Actually sat at his table and sold copies of the talk after the talk let out. And people came out and started yelling at me. I had no idea what they were talking about. I mean, I saw the talk and I saw everybody freak out. And I saw the people crying, yelling, practically throwing things. It's the best talk I've ever seen on anything ever because of the reaction.
And you had no idea he was going to do that.
I knew he was going to do something because he said, I'm really going to blow it out on this one. And I said, what are you going to do? And he said, I'm not telling you. I'm not telling anybody. And he came out and did that, and people freaked out. And because he basically said, I was tasked to watch UFO researchers and report on what they were doing for the government, and in exchange I was supposed to get UFO information, and I got a lot, but it never amounted to anything. It was nothing provable, nothing, all these documents he got, probably half or more of them which were fake or mostly fake or partly fake, which he admitted to, and he actually have them in a book called the MJ12 documents. But yeah, I had to sit out at the table. He said, will you sell books for me? I said, yeah, I'll do that. Little did I know, after the talk, people came out and they were like running not running, but they were practically running to the table and yelling at me and asking me questions. I'm like, I don't know anything about this. I just learned the same as you did. And I really had. I didn't know about any of this. He hadn't told me. He hadn't really told anybody. So it was a weird time to be sitting and witnessing what I think is actually a piece of UFO history.
And so what year was this conference?
89.
89. And so who were the people that were there?
I was a little boy. All the famous people, all the Bills. Bill English, Bill Cooper was there. John Lear was there. I don't know if John Alexander was there. He probably was. I met Valet there for the first time. Somebody introduced me to him, so I got to talk to him for a few minutes. God, there were so many people there. I remember you don't remember him, but Clark Kent Super Science. He was this crazy inventor guy, and he would sell UFO detectors and UFO like alien repellent devices and stuff.
Wow.
He walked around in a white suit with a little box with blinking lights on it. That's all he did for him. And when Bill gave his speech, I remember Bill English said, "I'm going to get a fire hose," and he walked out of the room. And Vicky Cooper started crying. Yeah, there was just a lot. And Phil Klass sat in the front row with a tape recorder, grinning the whole time. He thought it was wonderful because everything was falling apart, which he wanted.
I mean, but who do you think was, like out of all the people that you've named that were high profile, do you feel most genuinely surprised by what happened?
Probably like the MUFON rank and file. There were people there that had started this alternate conference, like Bill Cooper in English, and God, there were a few others. Not John Alexander, John Lear. They had started this alternate conference because they wanted to deal with the UFO government thing in the way they thought was going, from their point of view, what was going on. And so they were totally expecting it because it basically just confirmed some of their suspicions about more. Not in the exact way that they were thinking, but they kind of went nuts. But yeah, I think the whole audience, I mean, I was talking to him 2 days before and I didn't know what he was going to say. So, I had to take a bus out there. I didn't even have a car that could make it out to Vegas. So I just got in a bus in LA and took a bus out there.
And so what, after he presented, what happened? Did he run off stage? Did he go?
Yeah, he ran out the back door or next to the stage because he said, instead of taking questions from the audience, I'm going to ask the questions and answer them myself. And of course that pissed people off. And he did. He just, how long has this been going on? Why Bill Moore? Why? I mean, a lot of these questions. I mean, you can find I think both the transcript and the actual recording online now. You couldn't find them for a long time. But I almost don't fault him for doing that, because if he had just let people ask questions, he never would have gotten to answer any questions. There would have just been too much yelling. I mean, he could barely do the talk. There was so much yelling at him. 3 or 4 times the guy had to get up, the state director had to get up and tell everybody to calm down and shut up.
And so, I mean, it's interesting because, here he is coming out on stage saying that, yes, I was in communication with these people. Yes, I was giving stuff up and, A, B, C, and D because I wanted to get the inside scoop, allegedly. And, that was scandalous back then. But now you've got a whole group of people that do the same thing, in my opinion, so it's like, where is anybody, standing up and saying, hey, wait a minute, you're compromising what, because you're working with this group and you're doing A, B, C, and D, and you think that you're
It's,
getting
what, Erica, to me, it's just part of the game. There's nothing I can do about it except watch it and sort of figure out what might be going on. Because people are, every time somebody says, so-and-so from the government said this, like anybody from the government saying anything about UFOs has an agenda if they're still in the government. And even if they maybe pretend not to be, they've got an agenda, and you have to keep that in mind, and inform yourself about what they're saying. And the thing is, to me, listening and hearing what they're doing and hearing what they're saying is interesting. I don't just say, God, stop lying. It's like, well, some of the stuff, not all of it's lies. The other thing is, I'm trying to figure out what they're trying to do with this stuff. I'm trying to figure out why they're doing. I'm trying to figure out, why use the UFO thing again as a fulcrum for whatever project is going on. That's interesting to me. Like I said at the beginning of the first chapter in Defies Language, the name of the chapter is "You play the game or you get nothing." So instead of fighting against it, I just like to kind of sit there and listen. It's like, okay, what's that person saying? Okay, who do they know? Okay, what did they say 10 years ago? Okay, in 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 months, where are they at and what are they saying now? Those things interest me because I just like seeing how the game is played. I don't really, because there's nothing I can do about it. I can't make them stop. I can't affect the conversation in any way, not that I'd want to. But I'm very interested in what the conversation is and what's being projected out and how people are presenting themselves and what they're saying. That's very interesting to me. And, I'm actually proud that a lot of people I know probably don't like each other, but I talk to all of them and I try to get as much information and insight as I can out of all of them. And that I'm not to say that I'm talking to any government people. That was only during Project Beta. After that, I really didn't have any contact. I mean, I've talked to some of them at conferences and things, but like if I can stop Lou Elizondo at a conference and talk to her, I could stop Hal Puthoff at a conference and talk to them for 5 minutes. I just try and ask a question that I really want an answer to and see how they answer it and see how that compares to what somebody else said or what I know from the past or whatever. And it's just interesting to me, and I don't, all this goes on in my brain and I don't really talk about it too much, but it keeps me informed about things that interest me. Like whatever Stephen Greer says generally doesn't interest me, but like if Kevin Day says something, yeah, I kind of want to hear what he has to say today, that kind of stuff. And I think you had Kevin Day on recently, didn't you?
No, I haven't had him on. I wish. I would love to get him on.
Okay. Yeah, I had him on once. And what I asked him was, how did it affect your life? I didn't care what happened. He talked about that all the time. I wanted to find out what his life was like before, what it was like now, what had changed, and what was, what's different in his life now, and what did anything unusual happen afterwards. And he told me plenty, and it was very interesting. And he wasn't even near any of the stuff, and his life still got messed up. Like as if he was standing right in front of a UFO in the same way of a UFO witness has their life affected. He was miles from it. He said he saw it through binoculars. He said it was just a little dot, but he still got affected very heavily as if he had been right near it, meaning psychologically and I don't think physiologically, but stuff started happening in his life. Weird things and weird people coming to visit him and, changes in the way he thought about things, changes in, maybe psychic episodes, things like that. Very interesting to me. That's way more interesting to me than disclosure, which ain't going to happen.
Well, okay. So let's just for a second, your brief, summation on disclosure. It ain't going to happen.
My brief summation on disclosure is like asking the parent that always lies to you to tell you the truth just this one time, and if they don't, they're lying. That's what disclosure is to me.
And so what do you think people who are, kind of champions of the disclosure movement, what is their motivation?
They want to say, I told you so. And they feel that this is the proper avenue and the best avenue to do it. I don't agree with that. But, if it does work, then good luck to them. I just don't think, based on past performance, I don't think anybody in the government is going to tell us what they know about the subject. And in fact, I don't think they know much more than we do. If they do, it's probably just details. Although there may be some that have a little bit of more of a insight into how it's intimately connected with us. It's not just this thing that's out there that we look at. It's always connected to humans. It's always connected to us in a very intimate way. I mean, just ask Whitley Strieber or any number of UFO witnesses and abductees, etc. That to me is the most interesting thing. And somebody said, what's the most important thing in ufology? I said, what causes UFO reports? That's most interesting to me, because that's so many questions come out of that. How do people perceive things? Why do they report them? How do they report them? How do UFO investigators deal with people that report them? Just all these questions come up. I don't care where they come from or what planet or whatever. I don't think there's any way for us to find that out. But we can find out how we react to them and what our physiology does and what our psychology does. Those things are interesting to me. It's like you basically have a readout device, but you don't know how to read it, because you're trying to read things out of it that it's not designed to do. It's not designed to take pictures and gather data. It's designed to survive. The human mind is designed to help the human survive and thrive and stay away from danger and reproduce and eat and all that stuff. And so I think a lot of stuff enters into the equation when you're talking about UFO witnesses, but nobody thinks about that really. So that's kind of what interests me now and has for a while.
And so do you ever think, though, that there was a point in time where this community, like back in the late 40s, I mean, it was seeded with information to see where it was going to go? Was there ever, I mean, what did the Cold War have to do with this, and how was the intelligence community potentially playing games with the topic and the people that were involved?
Well, you probably have a lot stronger opinions on this than I do. I tend to think that it's used as a tool what it needs to be. Other than that, it's like, well, let crazy people think crazy things. And the only time I think that maybe that it was controlled that I can remember was, of course, the Condon Committee, and then the directive to basically poo-poo UFO reports. Not because they wanted to cover up what UFOs are, but I think because they wanted to cover up ignorance. We don't know what to do about these things. We don't know how to, and people that were in positions to know, just like, this is a real thing that happens, but we don't know what to say about it. So let's just tell everybody that it's hallucinations and hoaxes and not a big deal, all that stuff. And I don't think it was a cover up of nefarious things. It was a cover up of ignorance. But within that ignorance and within that question mark about what it is, a lot of agendas can be grafted onto that. So,
and I love that. That's perfect. That is perfect. It's cover up of ignorance. I really like that.
Yeah. I mean, what do you do with something you don't know anything about and you're in a position of power? You tell everybody to ignore it and then use it, because it's such, I mean, I put this at the beginning of the UFO Tarot Project video. The UFO is a Rorschach blot. It really is. People can put whatever meaning or importance that they want upon it, and it fits fine for those things for each person. I mean, if you start picking at it and really seeing what somebody's opinion is, you can pull it apart, which is why I try not to have a fixed opinion on the subject, because it's just, you can't have a fixed opinion on it because it's so mercurial. I've got a t-shirt I sell with a UFO on it. It says, mimic the obliqueness of the subject.
I was going to wear my t-shirt that you gave me, do not engage.
Yeah, that's the most popular one. Yeah. And
Love that.
I was been at a couple conferences and wore it or showed people. I said, well, what if you don't engage? Then, charlatans can come up. And I say, I can't do anything about that. No matter how much I do, that's going to happen. But I do have control over one thing, which people I talk to and engage with. And I don't engage with most people on some of these things. There's some people that I do, my friends, definitely, and people I respect, definitely. But, as a rule, like if somebody comes up and says, what do you think about UFOs? I tell them, and it's just, if you're not into it, what I says doesn't make any sense. I'm so equivocal about it and mercurical about it, just like the subject. And so, I don't have a fixed opinion about it. The only fixed opinion I have is something exists. It is intelligent. It interacts with us occasionally. That's all I can say for almost certain. But other than that, everything's on the table for me, just about. Even dumb things that I used to ignore, channeling stuff and things like that, that it's interesting to me now. Not because I think it's true, but I think it's because occasionally you get a piece of information that might be useful. About 10 years ago, I spoke at UFO Congress about the co-creation thing that I was kind of on about. I am kind of on about. And at the end, during the question and answer, somebody said, you've been talking about how UFO research should change, but you haven't said how it should change. What should people be doing? And I said, well, some of you aren't going to like this, but maybe something like divination. And I've said before, there was a smattering of applause, which really actually surprised me. I thought people would say, what a new age idiot. But, using tools to access your subconscious, I think might give some insight to some of this, because certainly our conscious thought hasn't gotten us very far. So that's why I'm kind of on about the creative aspect and the art aspect and the humanities aspect of this. Let's start looking at that, because music affects us as much or more than any kind of technology or poetry or movies or whatever. When people say, oh, it's a bunch of, arty farty stuff, it's like, well, then throw out all your records. Don't go to any more movies. Don't read any fiction books. Don't go to the art museum if that's not important.
Right. Absolutely. No, I mean, and you and I are both very, I think we're all affected by music. It's something that crosses languages and barriers, and it can devastate people and it can lift people up. It's very fascinating. But I want to just ask really quickly, because I've got people in chat that want to know about if you're still in contact with Richard Doty.
Yeah, I saw that. No, he during Serpo, I wrote a piece called "Serpo Was a Big Fat Lie," which was unfortunately, I don't think I think I did say it was a big fat lie. But anyway, after that, he wrote me and said, I was offended by your post. Don't ever contact me ever again. And he hasn't since then. And this was like, 12, 15 years ago. So no, I do not.
And so what do you think about Doty's, again, like newfound fame? And, you've got these people that are idolizing him and things. I don't
know if they're idolizing him. I think they're just thinking he's this famous person that never really talked before, and now he's out in the open. It's like the same reason that famous people hang out with criminals, or they used to. It's just kind of exciting. I'm not saying Doty's a criminal. I think he did some illegal stuff, but just the thrill of hanging out with somebody that's notorious is part of it. And the second thing about Doty is I think he just likes the attention. He likes when people pay attention to him. He's kind of an attention hound. So it's symbiotic then, because he wants the attention and people are giving it to him. So of course it's going to happen. The interesting thing is you can listen to him and occasionally he'll say something useful or important. Probably most of the time not, but sometimes he does, and sometimes he slips up, and so I don't listen to him anymore. But if people want to listen to him and write down or log everything he says, I'm sure there's some interesting stuff in there. There was when I talked to him, he probably gave me 90% BS when I interviewed him. But the 10% he gave me that was useful was quite useful.
And so, I mean, what do you make when you look at people, because obviously he's been associated with a specific crowd for decade after decade, and they've been promoting a narrative. I mean, Mirage Man is something that touches on that in a big way. I mean, what do you think their potential game is to shape the UFO narrative? Deep thoughts.
I don't know if they're trying to shape the UFO narrative, except in as much as it can be used as an intelligence tool. That's all.
Okay.
The only thing I can say is when people approach you from the government and flatter you, you better be careful. Because that means they want to communicate with you and probably use you to spread information or disinformation or whatever. I had that happen to me. I mean, a guy from the Navy said, "Oh, you're doing great work. Here's some stuff we want you to publish in your magazine." And after a while, I wasn't doing it the way they wanted. I was changing things or editorializing. They didn't like that. They wanted to come out pure. Probably because they were trying to push information through my magazine so other people could see it. Meaning like spies or whatever. I don't know. I don't know why the guy would be talking to me in the first place.
So this is Excluded Middle.
Yeah.
Okay, so you actually, because I think this is a really great thing that we need to talk about. Like, can you and UFO John Doe, we will ask this question. Thank you for the super sticker. But can you explain a little bit more about how that rolled out and how this person contacted you, what time frame that was, and how that played out?
Yeah. Sometime in the late 90s, my friend Richard Saraday, late Richard Saraday, he passed away January 1st of this year. He introduced me to this guy, and he said, "This guy's from Naval Intelligence. He wants to talk to you." And we met up, and he started handing me documents and things that he'd written, and and telling me he was from Naval Intelligence and that people in Naval Intelligence were also interested in UFOs. I said, "Really?" Because everybody always thinks of the Air Force. He goes, "Well, how much of the Earth does the Navy cover compared to the Air Force?" I said, "Well, the Air Force flies all over." He goes, "Yeah, but the Navy's on ships all over the world all the time. So what do you think we see?" And this was way before Nimitz and all that, late 90s. And he started telling me things that were true, and I could find out were obviously true. Like he would, an example I've given before, he would he would say, this was during the Kosovo War. He'd say, "In about a month, this is going to happen in Kosovo." And he was right. I think more than once. He just had access to information. So, of course, other information he gave me, like pictures, he said, "Look, here's UFOs at Area 51. And he showed me these pictures. I couldn't tell they were photoshopped or what. But he showed me these pictures, and he gave me documents, and he said, "Publish this in your magazine if you want." And I did a couple of times, and I got a very angry response from him the first time because I had said, "This may or may not be." And he said, "No, it is. Don't say it may or may not be." So it was that kind of stuff. And eventually, the communication broke down because I wasn't doing exactly what they wanted, and they kind of left me by the side of the road. But during that time, I was deathly paranoid for about a year, and I didn't like it. So eventually I just said, I'm just not going to be paranoid anymore. And it seemed to, after I made the decision, it kind of stopped. Even obvious stuff like mail being opened. I had mail opened all the time, but only from certain people. Carla Turner and Peter Jordan, always the mail was opened or lost. Peter Jordan, the cattle mutilation researcher. Actually, he recently started interviewing again. He's been on with Brent Rains. But yeah, that was a paranoid period. I mean, I had all kinds of weird things going on around me, and that was just one of them. And it just happened to be a government person saying that that I was doing good work, and they wanted me to help get the word out. But being the way I am, I don't follow, I'm not following orders. I'm not that kind of person. So I editorialized, and they didn't like it. So they dropped me eventually, which was fine.
Did you ever do any digging into his background?
I couldn't because he gave me a pseudonym.
Okay.
Yeah, I never did. I mean, he showed me documents showing he was in the Navy and all this, and I didn't know what I was looking at. Also, the other thing is that, yeah, I mean, the fact that he could tell me stuff that he shouldn't know, that nobody should know, secret government stuff that turned out to be true, that just convinced me, well, if he's not who he says he is, at least he knows people who know stuff. So, it was that was how I guess the disinformation started. I still have stuff he gave me and letters he sent me, and an interview I did with him, which it's never been played anywhere.
Wow.
Actually, I don't think I've ever said that before.
Wow. Would you play it?
I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to find it first. It's on cassette tapes, but I don't know where the tapes
Oh my
are.
God, you should totally play that.
I ought to. I hope it actually still plays. The tapes are like, 20 years old now.
Wow.
Yeah, I interviewed him and recorded it. He said it was okay.
If he said it was okay then, you got to do it now. That'd be a fascinating.
It was pretty paranoia inducing, that conversation, I remember.
And so, with the paranoia, inducing, and I know you mentioned Carla Turner, will you just tell people that don't know about Carla Turner who she was?
UFO researcher in the 1990s. She wrote, I think, 2 books, maybe 3. And she was definitely on the side of whatever this is, whatever this other is. It is not here to help us, and it's not benevolent. That she was not one of the benevolent ET people. She wasn't paranoid or what, rabid about it. She was very measured, and she says, this is what we have to do, and we can't trust them. And she wrote, I said, 3 books about it. The first one was Into the Fringe. The second one was Taken, and I can't remember what the third one was. Somebody could probably know in the chat. But to me, I interviewed her at MUFON, actually, in Austin in the mid-90s. And we became friends, and she would call me and give me little hints about what was going on, or somebody I should look into, or somebody in the military that I should look into and look up their background. She was doing this all the time. And so, and her and her husband, mostly was her, we'd talk about once a month and just talk about what was going on in the field and what she was doing, and what her latest findings were. And then she got, I think it was lung cancer, because she was smoking, and she died in the late 90s. But she was a real force in ufology for a while.
No, I mean, it's interesting to look back at Carla Turner and to look back at some of the people that have been, in this subject. And then, when you see their, I mean, obviously they're, like Phil Snyder, there have been people who have died early and things. And then the conspiracy theories that roll around about all of that. I mean, it is fascinating. I know that when I was visiting Nick Redfern, Nick has, I believe, most of Carla's papers and things,
Mhm.
which is fascinating. So she was more. I mean, was she more on the side of thinking this was like a kind of an MK Ultra type of thing?
Not that I know of. I think
Okay.
she thought that the source of this was from, ETs themselves.
Okay.
But she thought that the government was interested for whatever various reasons. That's as much as I remember. I mean, this is what, over 20 years ago. So no, I didn't see her as somebody that was thinking the government was behind everything, but she thought they were interested and in ways that might be unhealthy, and that she was interested in finding out about about certain people.
Yeah.
What can we get from this that we can use? Not really that military abduction stuff, but just more. I don't even know if she put much stock in that either. But she thought that they were interested because they wanted to find out what, if there was sort of, mind control or something going on. How can we find out about this? I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, Carla.
No. I mean, it's just fascinating, and I really appreciate this. Thank you. And so, like, when you were having these strange things like happen around you, and I want to say, like, just having been there and done that and lived through some of the things that I've been through, I mean, it's just like it's you can go down this rabbit hole of being, paranoid and, oh my God, this is what's happening, and
Oh,
there's
it's horrible. Let me turn on the light here.
and things, but then at some point in time, though, there are things that you can factually gather and you can create, you can, I mean, you can collect information, so, and then dismiss it or not dismiss it. But there's no doubt that I mean, I've had some interesting things happen in my life, which I can't wait to talk about. But I mean, what do you think? Who was that something that was just because of the mindset that you were in, or do you think there was actually an external force that was
I think it was
causing that?
both, but it was mostly me. The fact that I could just decide not to be paranoid and then it would stop. Yeah, my mail was opened. There's no doubt about that. There were weird noises coming from my bookcase, which I don't know what that was. I think they were psychokinetic things going on. Where my kachinas were, I used to talk about that. It sounded like somebody taking a little piece of wood and making like a little sliver of wood and making this noise with it. And I would look at the shelf and it would stop. Then I'd go back to doing my work and then it would start up again. And then I took all the kachinas out and put them in a closet and the noise stopped. And then I put them back and it started up again. Very strange, things like that. One time I was home late at night working on my magazine, and I lived downstairs from the apartment manager. And I walked out into the kitchen to get something, and I noticed he was upstairs and he walked into his kitchen. So I walked back to my room and he walked back to the room I was in. And so for the next few minutes, I just walked around the house. And for some reason, I heard footsteps above me the whole time. Like the guy was following me around the house, except upstairs in the identical apartment, floor plan. And finally, it stopped after probably 4 or 5 minutes, but it really scared the crap out of me. I didn't know what was going on. I mean, I suppose it was a coincidence, but it was really strange. But that happened. People would like stop in front of the house and take pictures, which, could have been real estate people, whatever. But if your mind gets primed to be paranoid, then everything is significant.
And I think, as you mentioned, your mind gets primed. And I think it's a very important thing to say here, because I think when you get into the UFO world, when you start looking at, and I'll use Skinwalker Ranch as a prime example of being primed. It's like you are given this story. You are told that this is happening here and, A, B, C, and D. And so already you're opening up your mind, and then you can go into these places and you're primed. So you're going to have some sort of negative experience here. You're going to be followed home by something, here. And so in a lot of ways in this subject, we are primed to have experiences, whatever they are. And I think that that's, something that
I think we're primed by the subject more than by the people. I don't think I was except for that Navy guy. I don't think he was trying to make me paranoid. Well, maybe he was, but it's basically up to the person. I mean, I made a conscious decision to not be paranoid because I was sick of it. And the funny thing was, I was giving a lecture to a bunch of college kids about a year ago, and I suddenly realized when I was talking to them, when I made the decision to stop being paranoid, all the paranoid stuff stopped, even the mail tampering. And I don't know if that's coincidence or what. And I didn't tell anybody I made the decision to stop being paranoid. I just stopped. I said, I will not feel like this all the time anymore. It's terrible. It makes me feel sick. It makes me not want to leave the house. I was taking recordings that I'd made and hiding them in cans and stuff. It was that bad. So, yes, we're primed to believe certain things, but I think we're primed by more by the subject than by the people in it. And I say that because, Erica, it may be Pollyanna, but I choose to believe which makes me feel like that I have power over myself and power over how I do things and how I think about things and how I act. If I lose that power, even if it's the illusion of it, then I'm lost to me. So that's how I deal with it. Like I said, there may be something nefarious going on, but if I believe that I have no control over it, that just makes it worse.
But and so what was happening, like when the mail was being tampered with? What were you specifically researching, and what rabbit hole did you go down during that time period?
There wasn't anything specific. I was just doing the magazine, but the only people whose mail was open was Carla Turner and Peter Jordan, an abduction researcher and a cattle mutilation person. And Peter actually dropped out of the cattle mutilation thing right as I was interviewing him with my friend Robert, who was in that picture you had. He had a radio show, and we interviewed Peter, and we got into all kinds of stuff. We went into the last thing we were talking about was that octopus stuff that's in Ken Thomas's book, and how some of the cattle mutilation stuff, which I can't remember how, connected up to that kind of stuff. The Cabazon Reservation and the Promise software and all that. And before the next week, when we were going to interview him again, he said, "I'm getting out of this. I don't like it anymore, and it really bothers me." And he wouldn't answer my calls anymore. And I don't know why that happened. I suppose somebody could ask him now. He might not answer it. And if somebody does, and it's me that brought it up, I'm sorry, Peter. But it was just such a weird thing to happen. And I don't know, freaked me out. I just felt bad for Peter at the time. And I think I told him that his mail was being opened that he sent to me. It was either open, destroyed, or never got there. And the thing is, if you don't want somebody to know they're opening your mail, you don't have to let them know. Mail can be opened without any they can steam open letters or whatever. But it was specifically from these two people. In fact, I think I published it in the magazine. Carla took to taking the envelope and putting a piece of tape over the envelope flap and writing "sealed by sender" on it, because I told her that was going on. And it's funny because after she did that, it stopped. Very strange. And I've got sirens because otherwise it wouldn't be a real show with me on it without sirens. Can you hear it?
No.
Oh, okay, good. This is a good microphone then.
Dang. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is so interesting because you can go down. I mean, it's those things obviously happen to you. You got mail that was sent to you, and that must have been very disconcerting, obviously. And then you made the decision to say, "Okay, peace out. I'm done." Which I think a lot of people in this subject should do for their own mental sanity. It's just like, okay, we can go down these rabbit holes, we can be fed information, and at the end of the day, what is more important? Like what you're doing, which is dealing with art, humanities, dealing with something that is more potentially creative and productive. And I like that. And I just want to ask Peter, Shadowy Spectrums wants me to ask you, did Carla ever show you evidence of her encounters?
No, but she did show stuff to my friend Richard, who went over to her house and reported all kinds of strange stuff happening. He said once he went outside and all the trees were blowing like there was a breeze and there was no wind. So, and other stuff happened while he was there at her place. I never visited her in Arkansas where she lived. She invited me out, but I just never made it out there, unfortunately.
And so what do you think, because you and I have been friends for a long time. I mean, what do you think when you see the fact that the UFO world, the UFO subculture can be used as a means to kind of promote religious ideology or a political, bent? I mean, having looked at everything the way that you have for so long, what are your thoughts on the way this subject has been manipulated for specific gains?
Well, I think it's wrong, but it's whack-a-mole. If you do something about it, another one's going to pop up. Yeah, I mean, I feel no reason to go crusade about it. I do feel a need to tell people if I think there's something going on, but I don't make a big deal about it. I had just for an example, when I think we talked about this the other night, when John Ventry made that really weirdly racist comment on Facebook. And he was a MUFON board member. And then MUFON basically doubled down and said, there's no problem with this. Who's the real hater here? It's like, whoa. And so I did a whole show just about that, because I was kind of like, just because somebody's giving $5,000 a year or more to MUFON doesn't mean they have a right to go online and start spouting racist stuff. Well, they can if they want. But MUFON should have done what every other organization does, and go in public and say, this person does not reflect our values and is not a member of our organization anymore. They didn't do that. They doubled down on it. What the hell is wrong with them? So for some reason, I felt the need to discuss that when it happened, just so people would know. But that's just an occasional thing.
Well, no, I remember that, because it was like such a, like it came out, and, there was a Newsweek article, and I mean, just his initial statements, everybody was like, what in the crap? And I know, and I'm pretty sure that you are one of the people that went onto MUFON's website and said, hey, give us an answer, reply.
Yeah.
And I think Roger Marsh, the communications director, made a couple huge statements that were just, in hindsight, not what anybody in public relations should have done. But then it was a lot about, yes, the kind of MUFON shuffle, and we're going to ignore it and then let it go away, which was, I mean, it I understand that. I know that's a public relations strategy. But when you have something and an opportunity to say, wait a minute, we've got this potential to make change, and to say, we are going to have ethics, we're a nonprofit, we need to have, we need to set the bar higher than this. They totally dropped the ball, and then they deleted everything. So I do remember seeing you. I remember, just seeing your thread there. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, well, a lot of people came on. I think Peter Robbins came on, and Ryan Sprague said a couple things, and we're all just like, what the hell is wrong with you people? And they hemmed and hawed and then took it all down. I think I took screenshots of it to keep them.
Oh, good.
But it's just, the thing I feel most bad about is the rank and file don't think like this, and they're not like that for the most part, at least the ones out in California. I went out and gave a talk at MUFON once, and I talked about the co-creation thing, and the management called me later and said that you insulted our members by saying that people were seeing things. And I was like, but that's not what I said. I didn't say that at all. And the funny thing was, I went to dinner with the people at the conference. I mean, that I gave the talk, where I gave the talk. They all got it. They got it, but the management didn't. So at that time, 6, 7, 8 years ago, this was before Ventry and everything, there was a big divide, and the people in the rank and file people were ahead of the curve. Hopefully that's changing. I don't know. My friend Earl is still in, Earl Grey Anderson. You've had him, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's amazing. But, I asked him, like, why are you still in MUFON? He said, because they send me cases. And the other reason he's still in MUFON, and he's trying to affect some change. And I don't think he can, but if he can, and if it looks like he's making progress, I don't have any problem helping him out with that. I don't think a big organization is ever going to do anything really useful, ultimately, because the phenomenon is just too weird to have an organization looking at it. It can provide a place for people to meet and talk and discuss this, and go off in their own, little groups and all that, and do what they need to do. But as a giant organization, I don't think big organizations are the way to go with the UFO thing. I think thousands of tiny ones of 10 or 15 people are much better communicating through the internet.
Well, I mean, I think, I agree with you there. I think that especially in the world of ufology, there are organizations that have been collecting data, doing Lord knows what with data, buying, selling it, and not necessarily after 50, 60 years coming up with anything. No, I mean, there's, gosh, we've had this MUFON database for 60 years. What have we done? Nothing. And
Yeah.
but potentially we could be selling this to people like Bob Bigelow, who are looking at specific trends and looking at psychologically profiling people. I mean, there are all sorts of things that could be happening. And so it's like, at what point do we like literally just say we are better off if we've had an experience, just keeping that to ourselves, maybe talking to a friend, maybe journaling, not reaching out to anybody on Facebook, not reaching out to anybody on social media, because as we know, all of these groups can be used as data mining tools. So to me, it's I don't know. It's the whole thing, like with me being in MUFON and having the experiences I had, and then asking, Jan Harzan, okay, where's the data going? What are we doing? Why haven't we done anything? Okay, Robert Powell, why haven't we done anything? Where is the science in this? Why? I mean, it's just
There's some science going on, and I think it's good. But I only think it's part of the stuff the SCU is doing. I think for the most part, they're trying to make an honest effort to do things, as far as I can tell, and do this with scientific data, which is great. But that only tells us part of the story. And also, it's looking at one evidentiary arm of the phenomenon, not the entire thing. And the entire thing is what I've been talking about: how it affects people, how it affects their lives. Why when somebody sees a UFO and photographs it, sometimes the photograph has nothing to do with what the person saw. I think there's a really important clue in there about perception and about the way that we perceive reality, and how it is malleable in a lot of ways, and that we have to honor that if we're ever going to get towards some kind of answer. So, because my idea is that we look at all the little hints that are coming in and then try to swim upstream from those hints. I don't think we can do it just with data, but we can do it with people's reports about who they were with, what, how they felt, how it affected their lives, all these things that I said earlier. That might be a clue, but it's not going to be a direct one. It's going to be almost intuitive by looking at all this other psychological data. I can't give you a better answer than that. In fact, I was on a show once, and I think I said we should look at this stuff. I think it was Alejandro Rojas, and he said, "What good is that going to do?" And I said, "Well, doing it the other way hasn't gotten us anywhere, really, has it? So why don't we try something a little bit different?" I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what we will find. I do know that it's better to do something different and see if you can find a different outcome than doing the same thing over and over again and not getting an answer. And there are people doing things that we don't even know about. People with money, people with grants,
Right.
people with all that are doing things that we don't even know about. And they've probably gotten a little further. Probably not too much further than we have, because it's almost like parapsychology. Every time you have an experiment, it works really good the first time, and then it declines very quickly after that.
But is that a good thing, though? When you look at some of the people that could potentially, that do have money, that have a very, they've got a political end game. They've got an end game that is not necessarily.
No, it's not a good thing, but there's nothing we can do about it.
Damn it.
Really? I mean, you could, but who's going to listen? So, I would like to find out what these people are doing, but, I don't know exactly what they're doing, but I do think that it might give us a hint or a clue. It's like anything else. I mean, just for an example, the adaptive optics for astronomy, that was developed to find spy satellites. In the late 70s. And then sometime in the early 90s, they just kind of released it to the astronomy community. And now you can have Earth-based telescopes, which can see stuff lot clearer than it used to because of that technology. So whatever technology is going on with UFO stuff, I don't think it's going to give us an answer to the UFO question, but I do think it's going to give us insight down the road. But we just have to wait. We can't just keep yelling at these people. They'll just close ranks even tighter, because that's what they do. I don't have access to these people. So what am I going to do about it? They're just going to look at me as an annoying fly that just keeps buzzing around them.
Yes, absolutely. No, I mean, it's fascinating. The whole thing is just, I don't know. And I love talking to you, because you and I have such a different perspective on things. And you and I have had heated conversations about, okay, you need to not engage. You need to not do this. And, I'm out here, doing my thing, and you have a different approach, which I really appreciate. But let's talk a little bit about, while I run and get some water, I want to talk about It Defies Language.
Okay. What about it? You just want me to extemporaneize while you go get water?
That would be God busted. Yeah, that'd be good. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Okay. Wow, now I'm the star. That book came out, oh God, 6 or 7 years ago. Everything's 6 or 7 years when you can't remember, right? Has everybody else do that? It was a collection of stuff I'd written for a site called UFO Mystic that Nick Redfern and I were hired to write for, and with the promise that we'd be paid, which of course I knew never was going to happen, because that doesn't happen, or at least it didn't then. And I basically used it to work out ideas and theories, and to reminisce and to extemporaneous on things that I hadn't before. And for about 5 years, that's what I did. I put a lot of effort into that site, just because I had things to say at the time. And when it finally kind of folded, they tried to get more people in, and it just kind of folded up, and I stopped writing because I'd written myself out. I didn't have anything to say anymore. A few years later, I think both Nick Redfern and Paul Kimball said, why don't you just, that's a lot of stuff. You put a lot of effort into that. Why don't you do something with it? So I collected them together in the book. I bought the rights back from the person that owned them for very cheap. And it's basically everything I thought and talked about and researched. Let me see if I've got it right here, actually. And I broke it all into chapters. I would just write, when I was doing the site, I would just write whatever I felt like writing. People I've met, all the government stuff. There's a bunch about Bill Moore, Serpo. Yeah, Serpo was a big fat fake was the name of it. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, my own UFO sighting, which is very strange. Richard Strassman and DMT. Yeah, like I said, people I've met, like John Keel, Gabe Valdez, historical things, important dates in ufology, other phenomenon, other weirdness, square craters on the moon, the rods controversy, Bigfoot and UFOs, stuff like that. I mean, I went all over the map, talked about everything. My opinion pieces. What's my favorite opinion piece? Oh yeah, Penn and Teller, Masters of Deception. I wrote a whole thing about how nasty they were and how completely useless they were as skeptics, because their show bullshit was just basically I called it the shooting the fish in a barrel show, because they'd get the dumbest thing they could possibly find, represented as the entire thing, and then shoot it to pieces.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, I called them agents of the counter evolution. They're trying to keep us from evolving.
There are a few of those people out there. And so Steve wants me to ask you, when are you doing more Radio Mysterioso?
I'm doing them right now. I just put up a couple of weeks ago. I've got another one coming up next week with Klaus Savon, who's the
cool.
Yeah. And then Jesus, I can't remember who else I have coming up, but the show is turned into, as of a few years ago, and people know this, I do the shows when I feel like it, not on a schedule or anything like that. Because I got tired of like, oh God, I got to find somebody else this week. I'm not doing it for money. I don't have any advertisers. I'm not part of any network. I don't want to be. So that frees me up, and I can talk to who I want when I want. Unfortunately, for people that listen to the show, sometimes there's long stretches where I don't do that. But right now I'm in a period where I'm doing at least 3 more interviews in the next couple months. And then I've got interview with Dean Aliotto, which was like 3 hours long.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. He's a friend. He lives in LA. We hang out occasionally.
Wow.
Yeah, he did the McPherson tape, the basically this one, the
Cool.
alien Blair Witch, basically from the early 90s. It was a bunch. It's supposedly a tape they found that a fam. Huh? Yeah.
Oh, my mother of God. Yes. Yeah.
Well, it's because it's kind of set up like Blair Witch. It's like, oh, we found this tape about with some stuff that happened to some people, and they're gone now.
Oh,
and so he went over a weekend, had a loose like script, got a bunch of kids dressed up as aliens, and shot this thing in a weekend, and then presented it as this like film. It was his first film, I think. He shot it on VHS, I think, in the early 90s. And it was supposedly a tape of a family that's out in the woods celebrating something in a cabin, and like something lands outside, and then aliens come in, and all kinds of scary, weird stuff happens. And I had him on the show talking about this, and I will post it in the next few weeks here. And what he said, UFO fans got in touch with him, and like they were saying, "This is real." He said, no, it's not. I mean, I wrote this and I shot and they refused to believe that he had made it up.
Dang. I'm going to do that.
Which
with
is
my
great.
Sock puppet show. Do you remember like a few years ago when I told you I was doing sock puppets?
Yeah. You should do the sock puppet show.
I know. This could be the same thing with the McPherson tapes.
Yeah.
Sock puppets.
Yeah. And then he did it. He got money from Showtime or something to do a nice version of it, expensive, like with a big budget. And he said it wasn't nearly as good as the first one. And he said then people said this was the one made to cover up the old one, which was the real one.
Oh my Lord, baby Joe. Bathe me in holy water. No, mama.
So yeah, and then I've got a long lost interview with Adam Gorightly and David Perkins about the Saucer Spooks and Kooks. That was a long interview, and it was such a bear that I never finished editing.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool. I want to hear that. You've got to do that.
Yeah, that's a 2-parter. That's like a 4-hour show.
Dang.
And I'm in the book, so we talk about a lot of stuff in that show. Because it's basically about government people and conspiracy people and how it affected the UFO community from the 80s through probably the early 2000s.
And see, I think to me that's like so important, because you do have these government people or people that are pretending to be in the government, and then the conspiracy folks, and it's just like, and now you look at like QAnon and you look at where we are in modern America, and it's like, what is going on? I mean, what do you think about the UFO community and the potential that this could have been like a breeding ground for QAnon?
I don't know. When you see, I don't know. I don't think it came out of the UFO community. And if it did, it was a very small part of it. But people ask me, it's like, why are there so many right-wing wacko people involved with UFO study? It's like, well, you take something that most people don't take don't believe in or take much stock in, and then think that people are ignoring this truth. Well, if you have that attitude about UFOs, you're probably going to have that attitude about other things too. It's not that much of a step. It's just a mindset. I don't think the UFO thing caused it. It's just a mindset that's been brewing for decades now, and being pushed and cajoled by forces that want people to fear things and then believe that whoever comes on the scene that's allied with them has a solution for these fears. It's just, fear not this menace we have just created.
I mean, but it is interesting though, because you've got like a group of people who are, it's like I think, we ask for answers to things. We understand that things are not what we're being told. We want to find information out about our environment, about what's taking place with taxpayer funding, about all of these things, and so you've got this group of people who are skeptical and mistrustful of the government, and then you've got people like, Cooper and different people over the years that have come in and kind of found that to be a place where you could, oh my gosh, I could build this cult following. Or you've got people like Stuart Rhodes, or you've got people who, can come in and say, guess you're mistrusting the government. We're going to put you in a FEMA camp. We are going to tell you that, you've got to, arm up and take the government down. What do you think the role is, if any, with the UFO community in kind of looking at all of this, and where people have been, kind of found their hook to manipulate people who are just good people looking for answers?
I guess just, think locally. And if you see this BS in your group, just say, are you kidding me? Get out of here. And just cut that out at the source. If I had a group and that came up in my group, I'd say, no, you're not going to say that stuff. I don't even care if you're right or wrong. Just get out of here. That's not what we're talking about here. It's like, well, you can't see how it's connected. It's like, no, I can't. Get out.
Well, good. Because honestly, I've been to different meetings and things, and even up at the conference I was at a few months ago, I was just sitting here going, okay, and this has to do with what? Okay. It was just they were just putting out this slick production, leading everybody down a path, and it's like, no, that's not why we're here. That's not why we're here.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's I don't know. It's an interesting thing, and you've been watching it and involved with it for a long, long time. So I appreciate your input.
Well, the thing I keep, closest to me is I've got my own agency. I've got my own mind. I will not be influenced, or I'll try not to be influenced too much by any group or another. And my friends and myself are as Robert Anton Wilson said, are the main conspiracy. We're fighting against all the other conspiracies because we're doing what we think is right. And whether that's, that sounds kind of weird and stupid and Pollyanna and childish, but it's better than being scared of everything all the time. So, pull some power back to yourself. Even if you think it's an illusion, because an illusion of control is better than the illusion of no control. So might as well go down that path. You could produce so much better work and have such a better life if you think that you are in control of your life, even though people will tell you, oh, well, you're just a part of the sheeple that are like that. It's like, well, at least I'm doing something. You're just standing around being scared all the time. So I don't know. I gravitate away from people like that. I do not engage.
Okay, so let's talk about your tarot cards. Let's talk about your project. Can you pull some of them up? Please.
Let me see if I can find them. I've been giving so many of them away. Oh, wait, you know what? I have the printer's proof sheet of the first, whatever it was, 9 or...
yeah.
Just a second, let me grab it.
Okay, thank you.
There it is. Here, let me put the headphones back on. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's the Ufology Tarot. And what we've done is we've taken the tarot cards, basically the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and created cards based on people in ufology. So the first one actually was the Magician, Jacques Vallée. The Emperor is J. Allen Hynek. Strength is Anne Druffel. I don't know if you can see it. There it is. And I got to look around the side here. The Lovers are Betty and Barney Hill. Oh, yeah, I think it's the same one. Oh wait. I've got a deck that I take with me. Let me grab those. I've been taking this deck around to UFO sites and basically exposing them to the UFO sites as some kind of artistical or magical act. Where's my cards? Oh, there they are. I put them in a bag so they wouldn't run away. So anyway, the card's going to be this size, like a tarot deck size.
Oh, I would love to have like a big picture of Anne.
I showed that there's Stan Friedman as a Hierophant. I showed this card to Alice Druffel, her daughter.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, and she was floored. She loved it, which made me so happy.
Aw.
Because we hadn't contacted her about this. We've tried to contact some people like Elton Turner for Carla Turner. We contacted him. And then, of course, Valet approved the card himself. And Whitley picked his own card. I said, which one do you want to be? And he said, first he said the Hanged Man. I said, that's a little kind of a victim thing for most people, even though that's not what the Hanged Man is. He said, how about the Fool? And I said, perfect. So is it in here? Yeah, it must be, because I remember giving him one. There we go. That's Whitley's card, the Fool. So if you know the Rider-Waite Smith, it's the Fool is persisting in his folly and becoming wise. And in this one, we have Whitley walking off this cliff, just like the guy is in the Fool card. But instead of a little dog that's telling him, don't jump off the cliff, no, don't do that, his two cats are saying, go ahead and jump off the cliff. We don't care, because they're cats. And those are the actual cats wow, this can't focus. Those are his actual cats. He gave us pictures of his cats so we would have actual images of his black and Siamese cats that were in the cabin when all this was going on. And way in the background, I don't know if you can see it, that's his cabin. You can't really. That's the cabin in upstate New York. There's the communion alien face. He's got a key because of his book, The Key. And he's, instead of a white flower in his hand, he's got a little white moth flying out of his hand with a glow around it, because that's the symbol for his wife, Anne. After she passed away, she said she would come back as a white moth. So we put that in his hand. That's a good one. It's Phil Klass. And on
Kind of reminds me of Phil Schaefer.
Yeah, Paul Schaefer, you mean? Yeah.
Paul Schaefer, yeah.
Yeah, and instead of a devil's wings and horns, Miguel Romero, who's the artist, put a stealth fighter behind him to make wings and horns, because he was a writer for Aviation Week and Space Technology.
Interesting.
And that's Carl Sagan, and that's Edward Condon. Whoops, there.
Interesting.
And instead, on the devil card, they're attached to the devil's like seat with these giant chains. We've got them attached by microphones, which is their ego. And Phil Klass, instead of having a torch in his hand, has a magic wand. He's producing plasma balls out of it, because that's what he said UFOs were. So that's his magic plasma ball wand.
Interesting.
Oh, and instead of a pentagram over his head, there's a little symbol of the Pentagon. I don't know if you can see it too well.
Wow.
Yeah, so I showed you Stan. This one's, I just printed on my printer, so it's not too clear, but that's the moon, and it's Gray Barker and Jim Moseley.
Interesting.
And Jim Moseley has a little string behind his back, and it goes up and out of frame, and it comes down, and it's got the Gulf Breeze UFO hanging by a string.
Oh, interesting. Wow. Huh.
Because of the questions about that being hoaxed, or at least partially hoaxed. And instead of a crab or a crayfish coming out of the swamp, there's this like new UFO like person that doesn't know too much yet, that's still dirty from the swamp, with a cell phone taking a picture of this fake UFO in front of the moon. Yeah, it's sorry about the focus.
No, it's okay.
And instead of towers and pillars behind, there's two filing cabinets, and Jim Moseley's is full of saucer smears, and Gray Barker's is full of all the books that he published. This one didn't come out too well on the thing, but it's the Hanged Man, which is my favorite, which is James McDonald. and he's hanging on a saguaro cactus because he lived in Tucson. There's a vulture above him, which represents the skeptics and people that were waiting to bring him down, which they eventually did because he killed himself. I mean, he was unstable to begin with, but that didn't help. That's the Rex Heflin UFO, because he did extensive study on it. And then on the ground is a gun and what is the other thing? It's a copy of the Condon report, because Condon was one of the people that basically persecuted him, I think. And in the background, that mountain range is the actual mountain range. If you stand in the spot where his body was found, that's the mountain range that you see. We actually looked on Google Earth, and Miguel did, and found that mountain range.
Yeah,
I mean, I can keep going through these, but it's just, one more. John Keel. This one's one of my favorites too.
Does he have any like porn novels in the background?
I think all I know is he wrote that one softcore porno novel, The Fickle Finger of Fate, which I have. I showed it to you, right?
Fickle Finger of Fate.
Yeah. He actually signed it for me. He said, "To Greg Bishop, my favorite editor and collector of high-class literature."
Wow.
But anyway, yeah, that's the hermit. He's standing next to the Ohio River. There's a Trojan horse on the other shore, and the Silver Bridge is collapsed over here. And up here's a Mothman. And then he's got a lantern with 8 rays coming out of it for the 8th tower, and also the eighth the super spectrum light. There's 7 colors of light. So we've got Miguel put 8 rays coming out. And actually you can't really see it too well, but the lantern, the glass in the lantern is shaped like the ship, the Indrid Cold Lanulus ship.
Right, and apparently there was a 65 Ford Galaxy around the Ingrid Cold thing, which I just have to kind of throw in there. But so,
yeah.
Okay, and those are like really interesting, mesmerizing, actually wonderful work from Miguel. And I will say though that, like, looking at the James McDonald, the Hanged Man, I would think that he would be more, I don't know, in a different position. I think James McDonald was so misunderstood, and having looked at everything that Anne Druffel did as far as looking into his life, looking into the fact that his wife was involved with the Black Panther, and looking at some of the intrigue that was going on, and the fact that he was actually pushing the boundaries for, like, saying that there is something taking place with the ozone, that we need to look at.
Yeah, that's what he testified against the supersonic transport because of that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like, to me, like, James McDonald's story is like so much bigger than the UFO story, and I think that I know some people want to kind of say, and I'm just throwing this out here, and I'm sorry, this has nothing to do with the card, but that
okay.
We are saying that James McDonald was persecuted because of his UFO beliefs, and I don't believe that was necessarily. I mean, even though Klaus did that, I don't think that was necessarily the thing that really was making him the subject of ire with people. I mean, Barry Goldwater, there were all sorts of people that
went
down.
Phil Klaus and a couple other people tried to get money taken away from his research. Sorry, you cut out, Erica.
Yeah, no. I mean, the whole thing is just so fascinating. And so the Empress, Linda Moulton Howe.
Nope, we don't have living people on there unless they give us permission, and there was no way Linda Howe was going to give us permission. I can't hear you, Erica.
Nope, I didn't say anything.
Oh, whoops! I'm looking at the wrong stream. Sorry.
Oh, no, I mean, but you've got Jacques Vallée on there, right?
Yeah, he's the magician. Did they say the Empress? Yeah, no, the Empress is Coral Lorenzen.
And so, what are you going to do next with? What's the next plan with the tarot deck?
We plan to do the Minor Arcana, which is probably going to take at least 2 years. The Major Arcana will be released sometime in January and sent out to the Kickstarter supporters. We do have extra ones. We're going to print up like 100 or a couple hundred extra, just so we have extras to sell for people that didn't get them in the first place. And there's a book with it. There's a book that describes each card in about 600 to 800 words. Sorry. And in detail, almost all the Easter eggs, but not all of them. Even Miguel's putting in Easter eggs and hints and things that he put in. And he says, he told the group, I'm not going to tell you what I put in there. And I just said, good, fine. I like that. Maybe someday somebody will figure him out. It's good that he's doing that. I like that we have all this information encoded in each card so that people can look at these. Somebody said it'd be a great research tool, one of the people in the chat. And it is. That's what it's for. It's for people to get to know these people, find out what they did, what their personalities were, what their contributions were. And maybe if you see one of the cards or one of them falls on the, when you do a reading, and you'll be interested in that person because you're drawn to them. Or you can put, the Hanged Man next to Jacques Vallée, and what might that tell you about the dynamic of UFO research? Just things like that. It's kind of a, it's self-help. It's randomization. It's think out of the box. It's an art project. It's honoring these people that we have so much respect for. Just all these things. Jenny Randalls is the other one that we have in there that's actually living, and she gave us permission and her blessing.
And I mean, and Jenny Randalls is such an interesting person. Like, I've just, read her work and been impressed with her for many, many years. So that's great. I mean, who are you thinking? Do you have any hints for what's coming up next? Who you're going to be?
Well, everything's done except the death card, and that's being worked on right now. And that has personalities in it. I do not talk about the cards before they're done. That's a rule in our group. But it's the only one left. So, like, I can tell you that he's working on the death card. He just finished the Wheel of Fortune, which is basically the Wheel of Ufology. So I can't show it to you right now. It's on my phone. But yeah, it's basically a wheel going round and round in all four corners. Instead of having the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, eagle, lion, bull, human, it's got a space brother, a Assyrian motif of the guy on the winged craft. On the bottom right is a crash saucer, and the bottom left is Cash Landrum. And what they represent is the Wheel of Ufology. It's either going to be Space Brothers, or it's going to be Ancient Aliens, or it's going to be crash saucers and disclosure, or it's going to be the military. And so that wheel just keeps going around and around and around and around and around until somebody realizes, hey, wait a minute, we keep looking at the same things over and over and over again. And so that's the symbol. That's the kind of the big symbolism of that card. There's a lot of little symbols in it too. Each card has so many symbols and so many things. We would talk for like 10, 12, 20 hours about each card, who was going to be on them, what was going to be on them. We would write to people that were associated with them. Like, we wrote directly to Jenny Randalls and said, what's your favorite flower? And she said a rose. So Miguel put them on her dress. And she also likes cats, so he put a tiny little pin on her blazer with a little Manx cat on it.
How cool!
We infused it with the person's personality and what they're interested in and what they represent, and the biggest things that they contributed to the field. So it's there's a lot of information. There's you could write a book on each of the cards, which is wonderful.
And that is so amazing. And it's like, you're right. When you look at each card, it's like you could just go back, and you could just dig deeper into that card. It's like looking at my father's paintings. It's like you can just sit there and then, like, for each moment that you're looking at it, you can find another avenue to go, another place to think, another thought to feel. And so it is really interesting that Miguel has chosen some of the things that he's done. And so tell us a little bit about Miguel, because he's been involved in this topic for a while, and he's done it. Just give us a little 411.
Well, what the thing with the cards is, we plan the entire thing out. Then Miguel takes all the imagery and all this information, and then he creates something based on it. And then he puts his own ideas and things into it too. We couldn't have done it without him. He couldn't have done it without us. Miguel is somebody I've known since the UFO Mystic days. He used to start, he was commenting on there 10 years ago. And as time went on, I found out that he was an artist. And the first book cover he ever did is this one.
Sweet.
That's his work. And since then, he's done other book covers. He did the A's for Adamski book, and Saucer Spooks and Kooks. Yeah, he did. That is an amazing cover to me.
That is really cool.
So he has this ability to take a very complicated idea and reduce it to extremely simple and meaningful imagery. Like there's an entire book of imagery just looking at this or the Adamski thing. You could talk about it for hours. It's just that there's so much information encoded in them.
Right.
So when we started the project, he said, I suppose you want me to do the cards. And I said, no, I want you to think about it if you want to. And he went and did a few tests, and he actually created a style of art for these cards that is not his actual style. He created it for the cards.
Remember you telling me that when you guys first started, that
Yeah.
was something different for him to do. And so that is really fascinating. And it's been fun to watch you guys go through the whole process of like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And now it's coming into fruition. And you actually did a crowdfunding campaign, and that was really great to be able to.
Yeah, it's basically to support Miguel when he does it, because he can't do anything else. He has to do this full time. So I just asked him how much he needed to do it, and he gave me a figure, and that's what I based the Kickstarter on.
And so
plus printing and mailing and all that stuff.
And so how much do you have to print? Like, is this like a print on demand, or do you have to buy them in bulk?
We have 3 printers I'm going to send the files to, and I'm going to see which one looks the best. We have a printer that's printing the cards, who is here in LA, which was nice because I can go. That's the one we decided to do the cards with. It cost almost twice as much as the original cards we went with, but they did such a good job. And I can go check the proof by driving there in half an hour. And they're a quarter mile from SpaceX, which is a funny thing too. Every time I go there, I go by the SpaceX headquarters with the big rocket. So they're going to print a sample, and then 2 online, print on demands are going to print a sample. Whichever one looks the best, we're going to use them.
And I know that's like a really hard thing. It's like, having a book. It's you can do the print on demand. I mean, you lose so much money. You're like doing T-shirts and things like that. You like either have to print like in bulk, and then you're risking, money.
Yeah,
money.
I think that's why we did the Kickstarter. Okay. And then Josh Cutchin did the layout for the book. He's another one of the people in the group. Dave Metcalf is another person in the group, and Susan Demeter is female and the tarot expert in the group. So I very carefully chose these people to be in the group because of their knowledge and how they felt about it, and how we're all kind of on the same page about this. And we do our complete each other's sentences thing. So we've been talking about this for years. We've been talking about it for 2 or 3 years, and we've been working on it heavily for the last year, especially Miguel.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's a big project. It's a wonderful project. And it's just something that it came into my mind like 4 years ago. I wonder what would happen if you put ufologists on tarot cards.
We were friends during that time, and you were, talking about different things like that. And I mean, it's just been fun to see you like go from that whole, hey, this is what I'm thinking about, to I'm going to make this happen and involve some really cool people and things. So that's interesting. And I still need to get a deck. So if I wanted to buy a deck, where could I find one?
You probably just have to go to the Kickstarter and write me. But since we know each other, I'll just send you one.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Thank you. And thanks for asking me about the deck. It's something that's just really, it's really turning my engine now. And it has been for the past year. It's just something that I really, really believe in. And so does the whole group.
And so like when you get up in the morning, do you pick a card? Like, do you do a spread? Like what do you do?
I don't actually interact with the cards that much. Every once in a while, I will actually get up and then like have a query, and I will either pick a card or I'll do a 2-3 card spread, which is like, present, past, and future, whatever. Like just what? Let's ask something. Where's ufology going to be in a year?
Yes. And Ruffle. You knew it.
But I love doing things like that. I love doing this randomization. And it's like, I was talking to somebody today and he's like, I don't know about this stuff and I don't know about synchronicities and all this stuff. I said, look, you know what I look at it as is more information and advice. You don't have to take it. You don't even have to take it seriously. But it also makes you think a little bit. It's like, well, what about strength in ufology in a year? Does that mean that, you know, ufology will be back to where it was and, you know, running on all cylinders? And will there be more of an infusion of smart people in it like there has been? I think that's a really good fallout of the Nimitz thing and the whole New York Times thing and all this government stuff. It's brought smart people, smarter people with more education and degrees and all this into this because it's okay to talk about. And that's good. I like that. But yeah, I mean, you know, based on that, maybe we will be more strong as into looking into this mystery in a year. I don't know. And of course, it's Ann Druffel, who's a female. So maybe there'll be more female researchers. That'd be great.
That would be great. And of course, it's Ann Druffel, who I have the pleasure of having her archives right here. And I can look at everything and know that she was onto some things that are pretty amazing. And I can't wait to share, you know, all of that. So I think that's a very cool card. I think you just pulled that on purpose just to kind of get me excited.
Well, you know what? These things, it's so weird that, you know, how relevant they could be. You know,
I mean, it's
I've already had somebody do a reading with just these cards and it was really exciting. Just these few that I have. I said, oh, you can't do it. And she said, I can do it with that many cards. And she did. And it was a great reading. It was about the future. I asked the cards about the future of the cards and it was really good.
You know what? I mean, life is interesting. You can find meaning and you know, I remember you, like when we went to the gardens in LA and you bought me like the most amazing tarot card like deck, which was about artists and things. I wish I could remember the name.
Now I remember. I remember getting them, but I don't remember what they were.
Yeah, but I mean, it was just like so amazing. So every day, like I will just go over and like just pick one, and I love it. It's an artist, and it's some crazy saying, and it's just like, okay, cool. I mean, that gives me. I'm not like saying my life is going to be based on this from this moment, but that just gives me pause to think.
Yeah,
and that's a cool
and an inspiration, and just a way to, you know, if you're stuck in a rut or stuck in a circular thinking or whatever. Maybe you can get out of it. I mean, that's what these cards are. These Brian Eno cards, the oblique strategies, which is, you know, it's, whoops, does it say oblique strategies? Yeah, there it is. They're basically cards with sayings on them. And all they do is, you know, like if you're an artist and you're stuck in something, you pick a card and then you hold it up and see what it says.
I mean, that's cool. I mean,
I can't even read that. Go to an extreme, move back to a more comfortable place.
Oh dear. That means I'm going back into my closet tonight. Yeah, lovely. Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, this has been like a fun conversation. I really appreciate it. It's been way too long since we talked, and I'm happy that you're doing such great things, and I appreciate all of that. And we didn't even talk about Escalante.
No, we didn't.
Oh,
well, that'll be next time.
I know, because that was really kind of freaky and like
Escalante.
They don't call it Escalante.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't.
Really? Okay, I've been there, and that's what they told me. They probably tell tourists that to make them sound stupid. I don't know.
Who calls it Escalante?
Escalante. The people that live there. The guys at the... Really? Okay. Well, then I don't know anything.
Okay, I'm just kidding. But you actually went there, and you were like totally like hanging out and going through the slot canyons and all of this stuff, which is crazy. That is so cool.
Yeah, by myself. I went solo camping there for, I don't know, a few months. I just go out there all the time and just camp by myself for days at a time.
That is amazing. That was a fun trip. And next week, I'm actually going to play, like I was interviewing this cute woman that had a coffee shop, and she told me a little bit about her family in Roswell. And so I'm going to play that. And like before in the show, though, I just want to say, I found some old photos because I was looking for Greg and myself in photos. And this was one of the first batches of things that I got to the archive. And this was Jim Klotz, who was so generous to
Oh,
donate.
yeah.
Over 1,000 periodicals and magazines from 1947 on. I've got such a beautiful, beautiful place here. And Greg, you've been here. You've seen some of the things that I've got.
Yeah.
So, and maybe someday, if you're ever needing to donate to an archive.
I'm getting feelers out from different archives now, even though I really don't have that much.
I know, I'm sure. But, I'm just...
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Maybe some will go someplace, some will go other. I don't know.
So what's your next thing? What are you doing?
I'm writing right now, but I'm not going to say what I'm writing, and doing the rest of starting on the next part of these cards. We'll probably take a break for a few months so we can strategize, and we plan to go on with them. We'll see what happens, but so far now we plan to go on with the project and have a full deck of 72 cards.
Dang. Well, congratulations. It's nice to talk to you. It's nice to have you back on the show. And I appreciate you and Greg Bishop. You can literally, there's wonderful books. It defies language. You've got to get, all of these are available on Amazon, on Project Beta, which is a really, really wonderful book. So make sure you get that, add that to your library. Those are some of my favorites.
Thanks for not asking me about Project Beta.
Well, that'll be next time, but I look forward to that. So,
all right.
Anyway, thank you, Greg, for being here.
Thanks, Erica.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And I want to just tell everybody from UFO Classified, all my friends from all over the world, thank you for paying attention to the show. Thank you for being here every week. Mario, Peter, you guys rock. I want to make sure that you guys go to expandingfrontiersresearch.org to look at some of the important information that we are getting forward about things that are taking place in the UFO world that could potentially expose practices that are not in the best interests. So anyway, expandingfrontiersresearch.org. You can also go to ufoclassified.com to become a Patreon and help support the show. This is a listener-supported show, and so I appreciate all of you who do that for me, and I look forward to hanging out with you guys next week. You guys stay safe. I'll try to stay out of trouble, but as you know, that's never going to happen. All right, peace out.